Peace and wellness to the family. Gratitude and greatness to those who are seeking the highest and greatest version of oneself. Today I want to talk about calcination, the first stage of spiritual and mental alchemy. Now, calcination represents the burning away of impurities. In alchemy, which is nothing but the ancient way of personal development, because the alchemists back in the 16th century used to have to speak in encrypted codes or be burned at the stake by Christian beliefs on powers, because of the power behind what they were doing opposed the regulation of organized religion. So the symbolism and the encrypted codes that the alchemistic spoke were in need of protection of the process that they were doing by way of organized religion opposing the true personal development and the true spirituality of those who were seeking it. So calcination is a representation of you burning away of the impurities. And I'm gonna give a personal perspective of how I went through calcination, as we are in a room that is going through renovation here. As you can see, from the outside, it's a regular building. You have no idea from the outside trying to look in, that this is going on. A total renovation of decor within the inside, but on the outside of the building, it looks like a regular building. But you go on the inside and you see it's going through a whole transformation. But when you look deeper, it's going through a transmutation, which would be the purifying of the inside of oneself, or for this example, the inside of a building, the building representing the self, the building up of character. So to get more into calcination, we went through a transmutation process. I went through a transmutation process that involved me having a mental breakdown. In 2022, I had a mental breakdown and I totally lost control of my emotions, some of my physical ability, my emotional stability. But all this calamity was needed for me to find a new mind. And once I found that new mind, through the chaos of burning away the impurities, letting go of the ego, the edging God out, and the false beliefs that I had that were seeming to be true, but they were an illusion of who I truly needed to be. So the transmutation process was a very spiritual process for me, because it was like an awakening inside of an awakening. The burning away of impurities that were on me, the representation of the building that I'm in now, the renovation on the inside, but on the outside, the building looks new. It's in a new complex. It's amongst a new environment. However, you don't know the transmutation that is going on within. The details of the purification of the inner dimensions of self. Now, when I was going through that mental breakdown, a lot of things happened to me. I cried the most I ever did in my life. I was able to release. Also, I found that I had a warrior spirit, and those that do have a warrior spirit, you may want to take a listen to this, because this is very significant to the way that we move and how our childhood may have put us in a place of developing a history of violence. Every problem that we had, we're ready to lash out with violence. Now, it's because that the only answer that we were able to provide was a volatile one, because of the environment that we lived in, the decisions that we made, and the people that we hung around, and the pride that we carried. That was another part of my transmutation that I had to let go, was my pride. A false sense of pride, of a false sense of self-imagery that I had developed by way of my environments, beliefs, principles, falsely imprinted on my mental and spirit to make me believe that I was somebody that I really was not. The impure self, the lower self, some call it, but today we're gonna refer to it as the impure self. Now, we're going through this process. I understood that I was having something happen to me that never happened before. Mentally, spiritually, I was able to look outside of myself like I was looking down on myself from a higher perspective, but I couldn't quite get it all together until all the impurities were burned down. And we'll talk about the next stage of alchemy, which will be the ashes coming into our phoenix phase, but it was all the stages of spiritual alchemy that I had to go through. Starting with this one though, I remember vividly, started with my breakdown. So with going through that, I started seeing that my violent behavior and background needed to be reconstructed. But first I had to face it, because I couldn't be violent with myself anymore, because I had to win the war within my mind. So the battle had to be won within. The battle had to be won in my mind so I can win the war over time. So what happened was I began to go deep within and reflect. And when I started reflecting on how I used to handle my problems and when I had to face my traumas, because part of the reason why I had the breakdown was because I had to face my traumas, because I moved into a building such as this. Except the building that I moved into was an old house that held traumas, that held old traumatic events, that held old past traumatic stress, that held old memories of me not being in my true self, with me having a volatile background. All of those memories came back and smacked me in my face, which caused the breakdown. So it made me face them. Understanding that I couldn't solve all my problems with violence. So how do I reconstruct that? What is the opposite of violence? It's peace. So I needed to find my inner peace to transmutate and to reconstruct and redefine myself. Calcination is very, very spiritual. Because not only do you get broken down, you get to see your impurities. And your impurities lead you closer to what's pure about yourself. If you truly want to heal them, if you truly want to transmutate into the person that you are supposed to be and stay loyal to become. Because within this process, I found not only a new mind, not only a new me, but I also found new relationships. I also found new social clubs. I also found new ways to solve my problems without violence. I also found how to alchemize my thoughts of violence. I also found forgiveness. And when I did lash out with violence, I also found a part of me that I never knew existed. Now, all this came with the mental breakdown, but every day got easier the more that I faced the fact that it takes a strong mind to have a mental breakdown. And the more I looked at this as an opportunity to find a side of me, through an emotional side of me that I never felt, through emotions that I never felt, to be totally break down in a self-calamity of chaos, a roller coaster of emotional alchemy, that this probably could be one of the best positions, a power positioning that I could be in, a reestablishment of authority within self. Calcination, stage 1.